Hello, good evening and welcome to the news at 7 on NTA International. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Mining activities in Zamfara and its environment are hereby suspended with immediate effect.
Federal government orders the suspension of all mining activities in Zamfara State. As Nigeria joins the world to mark the World Health Day, correspondent on special assignment examines how close Nigeria is in achieving universal health coverage. Tutsi Rwanda genocide in focus as Vice President Yemi Osinbajo joins world leaders to mark 25th national remembrance of the genocide. And international powers begin evacuation of personnel from Libya amid worsening security situation. Thank you for joining us. The federal government of Nigeria has suspended all mining activities in Zamfara State. Acting Inspector General of Police Mohammed Adamu said this at a joint press briefing of Police, Military and Department of State Services in Abuja. Adebola Brooksling Sunday reports that Chief of Staff to the President Abba Kyari, Director General of the Department of State Services Yusuf Magaji Bichi and Director General of the National Intelligence Agency Ahmed Abubakar were at the meeting.
Time now, Zamfara State has been facing security challenges caused by armed bandits. It is in a bid to permanently put an end to all forms of criminal activities in the state and Northwest in general that the police, military and other security services commence Operation Puff Adder.
Our commitment at protecting the sanctity of life and property is irrevocable, and we will not scale down the pressure on the armed bandits until they are totally flushed out. Meanwhile, in the face of intelligence report that has clearly established a strong and glaring nexus between the activities of the armed bandits and illicit miners, with both mutually reinforcing each other, the federal government of Nigeria has decided as follows. Mining activities in Zamfara and its environment are hereby suspended with immediate effect. I want to assure the general public, especially in the affected areas, that the security services are doing their best to address the security situation. May I appeal for the cooperation of the local communities, especially the traditional and religious leaders within the community, to cooperate with the security agencies.
Abubakar Adamu Muhammad also urged all foreigners operating in the mining fields to close and leave within 48 hours.
Consequently, any mining operator who engages in mining activities in the affected locations henceforth will have his or her license revoked. Meanwhile, we note the use of social media to spread fake news, falsehood, and deliberate misinformation. We therefore urge our citizens to exercise restraint in circulating uninformed information capable of doing more damages to all of us. Let us not allow the social media to hijack our sense of judgment and capture our minds negatively.
The operation is aimed at reclaiming every public space under the control of the bandits, arrest and bring to book all perpetrators of violence in the area and their collaborators. Adebola Brooksling Sunday, NTA News.
And still talking security, the task force for Operation Diran-Mikiya has successfully destroyed an armed bandits logistics base at Ajia and neutralized dozens of armed bandits at Ajia and Wanaka in Birnin Magaji local government area of Zamfara State. The Director of Public Relations and Information of the Nigerian Air Force, Ibikunle Daramola, disclosed that the operation was executed on 4th April 2019, sequel to human intelligence report indicating that the armed bandits were using a compound within Ajia as a logistics store to support their operations. The Nigerian Air Force, working in close coordination with sister services and other security agencies, will sustain its operation to neutralize the armed bandits and deny them freedom of action and activities in the northwest. And now to other stories. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo has joined other world leaders and top dignitaries as special guests in the ceremonies marking the 25th national commemoration of the genocide against the Tutsi in Kigali, Rwanda. State House correspondent Jide Onifade reports that some of the activities lined up include the wreath-laying ceremony and lighting of the flame by President of the Republic of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and the special guests. April 7th, 1994 marked the beginning of the genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, perpetrated by the Hutu extremist-led government. In 2003, the United Nations General Assembly officially proclaimed 7th of April the International Day of Reflection on the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. The Vice President is expected into the country later this Saturday. And following the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda, correspondent Debola Brooksling Sunday, who was in Rwanda recently with Nigerian delegates from the northeast, takes a look at the lessons Nigeria can learn from the crisis.
It was in the early hours of April 7, 1994, that the ethnic tensions ruptured into genocide. The incident led to the loss of lives of about 1 million people in a country of estimated 9 million people in about 100 days. Men and children killed, women raped, and some were burnt to death. Worship places were not safe. Nigerian delegates, mostly from the northeast states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, were taken through the 28 stages of the memorial.
Both of them were the key in this hatred propaganda.
Hatred, nepotism, sectionalism, and discrimination were some of the factors that led to the genocide as listed by the tour guide. As a sign of respect, the head of the civil service of the Federation, Winifred Oyoita, supported by the delegates, laid a wreath and observed a minute's silence. This Kigali Memorial was built in 1999 and was officially opened in 2004. Here, there are 250,000 people buried, a place for remembrance and learning.
After genocide, as being survivor,
Serge Rigwemba is a visitors engagement officer of the center. He said most of his relatives who were victims were buried here.
Talking about hatred between Hutu and the Tutsi that was forged by colonial power and reinforced by the government. First, after genocide, you get a new government, a good one, that promoted peace and it created an atmosphere where everyone feels equal.
For him, it was a bad experience that they don't wish their enemies.
Even for themselves, it was quite too emotional to deal with because they were carrying that shame from the families, from the parents. So the lesson I took is that whatever you do, there is a risk of being held accountable.
Serge said his job at the center, though not easy, helped him to bury the past.
Being a born-again Christian, I would say that God helped me to move to that step. And I would not say that it's something that comes overnight. It takes time. You learn how to greet someone, you learn how to face someone, to greet him, and it's a long journey, but it happens. And
since the inception of the government of President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015 to date, we in the Northeast have very much appreciated the efforts he has shown to bring down the insurgency of Boko Haram. We have regained our territory and our people are now going back to their ancestral homes. Not only that, President Muhammadu Buhari ensured that nobody suffered. All our IDPs were catered for, they were fed, accommodated, and taken care of. I'm calling on all Nigerians, particularly those in the Northeast, to ensure that we reconcile ourselves, we forgive ourselves, Let us imbibe the Rwandan experience.
One of the take-homes for the delegates here, they say, is that when you chain yourself to the past, you deny yourself the future. The 1994 genocide will always mar Rwanda's history, but this country of 1,000 hills have moved forward since those dark days. But the good news, however, is that both politically and economically it's been growing fast and it's been predicted to keep booming. In Kigali, Rwanda, Adebola Brookslyn Sunday, NTA News.
And based on the foreign scene, forces from Misrata arrived in Tripoli to defend it from rebel troops. International powers have begun evacuating personnel from Libya amid a worsening security situation. U.S. Africa Command said it had relocated an unspecified contingent of U.S. forces, while India said it had evacuated peacekeepers to Tunisia. Rebel forces under General Khalifa Haftar have advanced from the east with the aim of taking the capital, Tripoli. The UN-backed Prime Minister has accused him of attempting a coup and says rebels will be met with forces. Libya has been torn by violence and political instability since longtime ruler Muammar Gaddafi was deposed and killed in 2011. Prime Minister Theresa May has insisted that she had to reach out to Labour in a bid to deliver Brexit or risk letting it slip through their fingers. The Prime Minister said there was a stark choice of either leaving the European Union with a deal or not leaving at all. And Shadow Business Secretary Rebecca Long Bailey says if no deal became an option, Labour would consider very, very strongly voting to cancel Brexit. Some Tories have criticized the Prime Minister for seeking Labour's help on her deal. Commons leader Andrea Leadsom said the Tories were working with Labour through grifted teeth, adding that no deal would be better than cancelling Brexit. MPs have rejected Ms. May's Brexit plan 3 times, and last week's talks between the two parties were aimed at trying to find a proposal which could break the deadlock in the Commons before an emergency European Union summit on Wednesday. However, the 3 days of meeting stalled without agreement on Friday. And emergency response teams have confirmed that 2 female carriers donated their explosives within 5 minutes interval at Munadalti settlement Saturday evening. As a result, 3 persons died, including the 2 bombers, while 41 others sustained various degrees of injuries. The injured are currently receiving medical treatments at General Hospital, Maiduguri. And to revolutionize the country's leather industry and create employment has started yielding fruits, the latest being the successful training, graduation and sponsorship of 64 youths to effectively harness the value chain of the leather industry. Justin Bemuyi reports that the program is controlled by the Nigerian Institute of Leather and Science Technology in collaboration with the United Nations Development Program.
This is barely 4 months down the line after the federal government approved National Leather and Leather Products Policy to exploit the country's leather resources. Just before now, she was not just unemployed, she was also an unskilled young Nigerian with almost nothing to offer to an employer. Jubilee Nanso from Langtan North, Plateau State, against all odds, now prides herself a certified specialized artisan in leather craft after undergoing an intensive 3-month training program on leather and leather products manufacturing. She's not just one of the 34 trainees from Kogi and Plateau States graduating from the first batch of the program, but the only female amongst the beneficiaries. The program builds capacity in specialized artisans on leather craft to enable them become employers of labor in leather and allied industries. For the Minister of Science and Technology, Dr. Ogbonnaya Onu, Nigeria is on the path to becoming an industrialized nation if leather and textile works are properly utilized. More jobs will be created by small and medium-scale enterprises, and graduates will establish viable leather businesses to benefit future generations, the minister reiterated.
You are going to be entrepreneurs. We don't expect that you will be looking for jobs. We believe that with the knowledge you have acquired for those who are graduating today, and the knowledge you will acquire for those who are matriculating today, that you will put that knowledge into practice, and you'll be in a position to produce products that you can sell in the market. And by doing so, you will be starting a new business. And you'll be in a position to hire people. This is how to create jobs.
48 trainees from the internally displaced camps from Borno State were matriculated to undergo the 6-month training program in Nilest, Abuja. And 34 incubatees, as they are referred, from the Federal Capital Territory were also graduated. In Abuja, Justin Bemunyi, NTA News.
And you're still on to the news on NTA International. After the break, World Health Day in focus. Stay with us. Have you back. 7th of April annually is marked globally as the World Health Day 2019 celebration focuses on the advantages of universal health care and access to financial protection and health services. The day also celebrates the 71st anniversary of the World Health Organization. As Nigeria joins the world in this celebration, Basi Taikba takes a look at how far or how close Nigeria is to achieving universal health coverage in 2030.
WHO report indicates that an estimated 800 million people globally are not covered by essential health services, while about 65 million people cannot afford basic health services. The report ranks Nigeria among the highest, with out-of-pocket expenditure leading to the death of about 12.4% per 1,000 annually. These are the reasons WHO is reminding world leaders that there can be no health security without universal health coverage.
We need to, if we want to reach sustainable development goals, target 3.8 on achieving universal health coverage by 2030.
So it's essentially about equity, it's about realizing the human right to health.
Experts say strengthening the healthcare sector for universal health coverage is the key instrument for the change offered by the Agenda 2030.
This administration has been talking about revitalization of 100,000 PACs, and we have started. Let's do this work to create awareness. Let's also make sure that people understand what we are saying, so that at the end of the day, we're all working towards universal health care, which is that destination. So we're on the journey, and we'll reach there.
2019 things like the 2018 is universal health coverage, everyone, everywhere. This is to ensure that everyone, everywhere has access to the type of care they want, and at the time they want, right in the hearts of that community. Basi Taikba, NTA News.
Okay, so I have down joining me in the studio to speak more on the World Health Day, Dr. Francis Ukwuje, a health economist with the World Health Organization. Sir, you're welcome to the studios.
Thank you very much, Walter, for having me.
All right, so universal health coverage, I mean, everyone, everywhere, that is the theme for 2018. Why the emphasis?
Thank you, Walter. Universal health coverage, as you know, ensures that every citizen of every country, and indeed Nigeria, has access to the quality health care they need, irrespective of who they are, where they live, or what they do, at the time they need the care without having to fall into poverty. And the emphasis for universal health coverage for this year's 2019 World Health Day, as it was for 2018, are for many reasons. One, global, in the sense that this marks the end of the 70th anniversary celebration of the WHO, and also it falls within the Global Primary Health Care Conference of 2018 in Astana, and the upcoming the United Nations General Assembly in 2019 September, where WHO will use the opportunity to reinforce health for all using primary health care as a vehicle. But again, for Nigeria, we know that the government of Nigeria, through the Federal Ministry of Health, has prioritized primary health care as a vehicle for achieving universal health coverage. So we believe that it is still very, very important for the country.
Yes, so 2030 is a target. I mean, do you see Nigeria and, of course, other African countries achieving this target?
Yes, I believe that Nigeria would achieve universal health coverage for many reasons. And I will tell you that Nigeria has been pre-positioned to do this in terms of legal framework. In 2014, Nigeria enacted the National Health Act, and based on that, the national health policy was reviewed, and just last year, the country, with all other development partners, including WHO, developed the National Strategic Health Development Plan 2018 to 2022, and the implementation, I know, would help the country to achieve universal health coverage. But most importantly, within the National Health Act, so the issues around the quality of healthcare, including infrastructure, human resources, had been dealt with, but it set aside the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund, which is a predictable funding for health in three gateways. So first, to provide essential health services for all citizens using insurance. Second, ensuring that we have the health inputs we need. So health facilities, the health workforce, and even drugs and medicines and vaccines for everyone. And the third part of it is ensuring that there is a provision for those who have problems when there is emergency. So for me, if the Basic Healthcare Provision Fund and indeed the National Strategic Health Development Plan that has been developed by the Federal Ministry of Health is implemented by the federal government and indeed all the states in Nigeria, in 2030, Nigeria will achieve universal health coverage.
Okay, Doc, so I really must ask this question before we round it up on this session of the discussion. Now, health affordability, how compatible is this for developed and, of course, developing countries?
Yes, so affordability of health is at the core of health service delivery. And indeed, in every country, we wish that every Nigerian, for instance, has access to health care, whether they are poor or they are rich. Today, if you walk into the health facility, most Nigerians, over 70% of Nigerians, would pay money from their pocket. And we know from evidence that this has led to a lot of Nigerians dying without accessing the health care they need when they need them, to an extent that even basic primary health care services, including antenatal care, are not accessed because people pay. So what we recommend as WHO in Nigeria is a situation where health will be free at the point of use in such a way that there is prepayment mechanisms.
All right, Doc, I really have to cut you off at this point because we're running short in time. But we want to thank you very much for coming on the news tonight. I've been talking with Dr. Francis Ukwuje. He is a health economist. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has described the victory on senators and House of Representatives members-elect of the 9th Assembly as an attestation of the trust and confidence their constituents have in them. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali reports that this was contained in a communication from the President to lawmakers undergoing orientation.
President Muhammadu Buhari, in the letter read by the clerk to the National Assembly, Sani Umolori, urged the newly elected lawmakers to cooperate with the executive to reposition the country.
The National Assembly will benefit immensely from your rich experience, ability and wisdom. I look forward to your joining hands with me as we collectively strive to put in place enabling laws, policies and programs that will uplift the economic and social well-being of Nigeria.
In the meantime, Chairman of the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, ICPC, Professor Bolaji Owasanoye, while delivering a lecture as the orientation for the first batch titled Legislature and the Fight Against Graft and Corruption, called for openness in appropriations for the National Assembly to eliminate public criticisms.
I looked at what 55 Nigerians stole, the amount that was in contest in courts across the country, 1.5 trillion. For every naira that is stolen, there is a cost of something denied. And using World Bank rates, we calculated, for example, how much social development, 1/3, which represents 451 billion only, of that stolen money, that the cases were in court, what it would have done to Nigerians. It would have provided 635 kilometers of roads. It should have built 36 ultra-modern hospitals, one in each state, and that will stop medical tourism.
The orientation program for the second batch begins tomorrow, Monday, 8 April 2019. Lami Ali, NTA News.
Report wraps it up on NTA International News at 7. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
This is Mambila Plateau, a place in Nigeria endowed with enormous natural resources. The topography, the undulating plains, and exciting rock formations. Waterfalls and waterways are second to none. Said to be the highest point in Nigeria, Mambila Plateau is the home of the largest hydroelectricity project in West Africa. Mambila Plateau, a virgin beauty waiting to be exploited for tourism.